Welcome to the Municipal Land Use Board. Tonight's Wednesday, April 18th, 7:30 p.m. We have a quorum. Salute to the flag. Mayor?
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did we get new chairs, or was this wishful thinking?
Adequate notice of this meeting is provided by posting on the bulletin board in Borough Hall, by email to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission of all persons entitled the same as provided by law schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. I would like to remind all members of the public that we have three fire exits in the council chambers, one behind me here, one behind me over there, and one out, of course, the way you came in. In addition, we have been recorded by both audio and video for purposes of creating a record for this public portion of this meeting. If any member wishes to be recorded or heard, they need only identify themselves by stating their full names and the address for the record. And the camera is right over there, so you'd have to come up. Roll call, please.
Mr. Arakelian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland? Absent. Dr.
She's
Gerwitz?
excused.
Dr. Gerwitz? Absent. Mr. Merman?
Here.
Mr. Grasso?
Here.
Mr. Sheningo?
Here.
Mr. Gibbons?
Here.
Mr. Sedaris?
Here.
Mr. Caslin?
Here.
Mayor Mignon?
Here.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
For the record, I called both of our engineer and our planner and told them they were excused for the evening because they didn't have anything that concerned them. And I welcome all of our members here this evening. Our first order of business, we have a memorialization. This is for Ms. Jane Schustenhoff, 738 Booger Road, Block 405, Lot 10. And everybody has a copy of the memorialization in front of them.
Mr. Chairman, this was acted on by the board at the last meeting on April 4th. This was for the front yard setback for the covered porch addition.
Any board members have any questions?
No. You would need, those eligible to vote are the mayor, Mr. Arakelian, Mr. Caslin, Mr. Grasso, Mr. Cray, Mr. Gibbons, and Mr. Sedaris were the ones who were present on that application. So Mr. Merman and Councilman Shanico are not eligible to vote.
Do I have a motion to approve the memorialization? Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Caslin?
You made the motion, Mayor?
And
And second by Mr. Caslin. Okay, Mayor Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Arakelian?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Cray?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
And Mr. Sedaris?
Yes.
Okay, resolution is passed.
Mr. Chakowski, just for future reference, it's a Darius, I-A-S, correct, George?
There it is. And then we're owed 2 more for the next meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, next up, we have a completeness hearing for Mr. Robert and Nicole Gilmore. Do you want to step forward?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Gilmartin, 359 Fifth Avenue. My wife could not be here tonight, but I'm appearing on both.
Good evening. Welcome. Have a seat.
Thank you. The plans that I saw and responded to the letter
Mayor, do you have a question on the letter of denial that you wanted to?
Not yet, we didn't hear no.
Okay. So you deeming, you feel as...
I unfortunately I looked at my house.
There was a survey, wasn't there?
Mhm.
Set of plans.
Sir, can you just confirm that none of this construction has taken place to this point?
Yes, I can confirm that. I can also confirm that we did submit 16 sets. I do have an extra drawing that would help show the...
I have an extra set of copies of the
Okay. Fine, thank you.
That's interesting.
it on the surface.
That's my question.
Somebody moved it.
So what this is here,
I'm saying this is
this, what's
for
depicted on here.
He also applied for his hours. Nobody needs to sort out.
But it's not listed.
Yes.
I did not go look at the back. Patio.
Any questions, anybody have any questions on the right side?
I'm going,
Complete.
yeah, this is complete.
Complete, yeah.
All right, so we got all the mailings and all?
I have not seen, do you have the affidavit of service, Mr. Gilmartin?
I do, yes. May I
And-
approach?
Yes,
Sure.
certainly. And do you have a proof of publication?
Yes. I do. Yes, that's the back.
Thank you.
Somebody reviewed the notice?
I'm looking at the notice now, Mayor.
Yeah, I believe Nalina did.
And the notice is appropriate. Everything's in appropriate form regarding the notice, so the board would have jurisdiction to hear the matter.
Motion to deem complete.
Motion by the mayor, is incomplete, do I have a second?
Second.
We're going to give that one to the councilman, just for a second.
Just for a
Roll call,
sec.
please.
Just for a second. Mr. Arakelian?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Shanigo?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
Mr. Sedaris?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Mayor Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes. Okay, it's incomplete, and inasmuch as we don't have any more old business, we will go directly to new business, which is Mr. Gilmartin. Again, the address is 359 Fifth Avenue, Block 905, Lot 8. And this is for a bulk variance approval for coverage of 2 paver patios.
And Mr. Gilmartin, will you be the only one testifying this evening?
Yes.
Then I'll need to swear you in for the formal hearing, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give before this board shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could, you can sit down.
Thank you.
If you could state your name again and your address for the record.
Robert Gilmartin, 359 Fifth Avenue.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gilmartin, why don't you give us a brief overview of what you're looking to accomplish and so forth.
Well, I am pursuing a variance because the permissible coverage is only 35%, as I'm sure the committee is aware, and what I'm seeking is a variance allowing us to go to 45%. And it's, as I've laid out in the application, it's essentially 2 circular patios, more or less surrounded by beds and vegetation. In some sections, there are natural boulders that serve to form a retaining wall, and but it's a paver patio, and there's a slight slope to my backyard, which makes it difficult to do much with it now in terms of putting a table or a chair without it tipping over. So that's the reason, one of the reasons for the project. And so there are a couple slab stone steps that connect one circular section to the other, and that's about it. And I understand that when it comes to lot coverage, it's the primary concern for the town, and especially for surrounding neighbors, will be water runoff, and I'm certainly cognizant of that. And it was for that reason that I wanted to make sure it was included in my application that we had addressed runoff and drainage issues approximately 6 years ago, at which time we replaced underground stormwater drainage chambers with some ones that function much better. So I included some photographs just depicting that. So I think between the improvements we made to the drainage system and the fact that probably the majority of the perimeter, as you can see in the drawing of the proposed work, is surrounded by beds for plants or flowers, should also help with water.
Okay.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Gilmartin, as part of your application, you submitted a survey prepared by Paparazzi Associates that was dated, I can find the date here, November 1, 2017. On that survey, there are paver patio areas delineated, a lower paver patio and upper paver patio. Those do not exist today.
Yes, that's correct, as I indicated to the mayor.
Okay, and, what, was this superimposed on the survey? How did it end up on the survey?
It ended up on the survey, as you said, superimposed. The contractor took the work of Paparazzi and Associates and applied his proposed work to that survey.
So the existing conditions would be as depicted on the survey without the paver patios?
Correct. I may even have an old survey without that, if it helps.
I just wanted it to be clear because there was some confusion that it was on the survey.
I see.
There's still some confusion.
Okay.
I believe you just mentioned you've been there about 6 years in the house?
No, 6 years, that's how long it's been since we put in the new
Okay.
storm chambers.
So, but let me ask more, how long have you been residing in this dwelling?
Since 2009.
Okay. Then my question is, why would the surveyor perform a survey at the end of November of 2017?
Oh, unfortunately, because we were told that we had to do that by Mr. Alter.
Mr. Scarpa, is there a regulation that you need a survey submitted within a certain period of years?
6 months. When you're going to do it, 6 months when you're going to do a site improvement, the survey was old, and I did not accept it. It was too old.
Okay.
Because it was new improvements on the
Okay. Typically, as part of the land use application, Mr. Merman, you would have a survey
Right.
No more than a year old.
Well, exactly. Okay. Very good. So this survey was performed then, and your contractor superimposed it?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, before we get to the dais, let's continue with our professional first.
And then the other question is that the other drawing that you submitted was this diagram prepared by Bergen Landscaping, and that was dated September 14th, 2017.
Are you referring to the large drawing?
The large
This one.
one.
Yes, that was prepared by Bergen Landscaping, and whatever the date is on is my understanding
Okay.
is when it was prepared.
So just for the record, I think we should mark the survey as A1 and the schematic by Bergen Landscaping as A2 as part of the record for any resolution that the board adopts.
So be it.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Skirvitz.
Yes, sir. Before I accepted what you have before you, there were several revisions because of the complexity of the patio with the retaining wall and the vegetative area in between. I needed something that I could reasonably look at and do the calculations for coverages and setbacks. This is probably the third or fourth revision to get to the finished product. I think Mr. Gilmore would know that. Yeah, it was a long process to get here. But I'm satisfied with what they have here for your review.
I'll go to our, to the right here, Mayor.
When you moved into the house, was it already renovated? Or did you do that?
It was already renovated, yes.
Do you know whether that house required variances when it was constructed?
I do not know.
Mr. Skirvitz, do you know?
I have no knowledge of that.
The north side yard, it's not indicated, but it measures about 8 feet, and there's 7 on the other side, so obviously there's a side yard variance that's pre-existing. Question now, in the backyard right now, is there any impervious surface right now, or it's all just lawn or whatever?
It's either lawn or a dirt area that has.
So there's no impervious surface. So the only new impervious surface you're putting in is this 520 square feet.
Correct. The only thing that I guess, one caveat would be that there are a series of maybe 3 or 4 wooden steps that go from the back of the house into a small concrete slab to support the steps.
Oh, that's taken into account, I believe, that's shown on your plot plan here.
Okay. And would go, obviously, be replaced.
So,
Are those the steps, I'm sorry, Mayor, but those are the steps being replaced by these bluestone steps? If you look at your survey, it says 2 bluestone, 6-inch high stars, it says stars, I guess it's stairs.
Yes, that's right.
so Mr. Skirvitz, what number do you have them as new impervious area being added?
Just the 2 patios themselves, I don't include retaining walls or fences for that matter for the application.
Okay, so that's 520 square feet
Correct.
on a 7,500 square foot lot, right? That's a 6% increase.
That's about correct, yes.
So are we saying now, if we're saying that the total coverage is 45 and he's added 6, the existing coverage is 39%?
Yes.
And how did you come up with that?
Just deducting what they're proposing, what the survey has shown, that they're over, it's a pre-existing non-conforming condition for your coverage. And the house, as the mayor brought up before, has a non-conforming setback. So it's already a lot, it's more coverage than what would normally be what is allowed in the zone, the R1 zone, which is 35% total coverage.
Which is, in this case,
About 39 is what he's at. About
2,625 is what's allowed. With my calculation, they have 2,500, they're under right now, that's my calculation. So I don't know how we went from 34 to 41. Because to me, it makes a big difference in terms of how I would view the application if they're going from presently complying to slightly over versus being over now and then adding another 10% to it.
Well, my calculation took into account obviously everything that's on the ground, but the paver driveway, the walkway going across the front of the house, and the 2 proposed patios. That's what I came up with.
Because I got the house footprint around 1,800, walkway's 125, 150, driveway's 620 something. So I think we need to be clearer when we get these applications in, is how these calculations are being done. Because when I go back to check, I can't get the numbers. There's nothing in the application that says what's there now versus what's getting added, and I think that's important for the board to know.
When I have architectural drawings, so I'll ask for the existing and proposed, and I include that in those letter denials here. I could do that too, with the existing and proposed.
You mentioned about I saw the picture of the Coltex. They were in there when you moved in, those Coltex chambers?
Oh, Stormtex,
Yeah.
the sort of igloo
Yes.
looking things? Yes, they had been put in shortly before I purchased the home. It was done by the gentleman of the company that had done all the renovation work on the house.
And what was the indication that they were not performing?
The indication was that I forget what they're called, the downspouts or the downcomers, whatever they are, along the side of the house, were backing up and water would freeze in the winter, and during downpours of rain, water would just spill out up against the house.
Are there overflow tees on the?
Yes, on the overflow tees, that's how I saw it, and that led me to just continue to do further investigation, and the more digging and probing, the worse it turned out to have been done, which I thought was the best approach was just to completely rip it out and do it right, for the sake of my neighbors, for the sake of the enjoyment of my own backyard. And we dug deeper, than the original chambers. The pipes that led into those chambers weren't even coming in properly. So with the new chambers, the pipes were going in properly. I had another contractor discover some of the connecting pipes had been connected at 90-degree angles with wood screws. I mean, it was really some stuff that I wish the persons who did the original work would have had to get a permit for that or have it inspected. But be that as it may, I think it puts me in a better spot today with just the issue of clearing water.
And as far as you know, is the entire roof area being connected to those seepage pits?
Yes, yes, definitely.
And from the picture, are they just one ring? They're 4 foot by 3 foot?
You're talking about the new chambers?
Yes.
There are 2 of them, and as I recall, they're 4 feet high and 4 foot diameter.
Okay.
Concrete as opposed to the plastic that's ripped out. It was a real headache because you don't expect something like that with something that's being sold to you as quote unquote new home. They ripped out.
Yeah, there's Coltex.
Yeah, they ripped that out.
There weren't enough Coltex, if that's all there was.
The name that I had found was Storm.
Yeah,
I don't know if
Coltex is
Coltex
a
is
brand,
competitor.
more, but it doesn't look like there were that many to begin with, so.
I think there may have been 2 original.
Those hold about 25 gallons each, just so you know. So obviously that was,
They were improperly
yes.
installed.
Because right now, even now, I mean, not that it's going to affect you now, but the current system is undersized compared to what you're bringing there, because you're bringing a lot of water to these 2 pits. So if you didn't have a problem yesterday or the other day, I'm sure you won't have a problem going forward. But
Well, yeah, I haven't had problems for 6 years, and the contractor who I had hired told me that he was very pleased that they hit riverbed, dug down a little
Yeah.
bit deeper than the original job, and found, I guess, almost like a sand type of consistency in the soil.
yeah.
He's on the marine up there. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
I have one comment, Mayor. I also included the 2 slab stairs for one patio, and then the other stairs going to the second patio.
Okay.
Mr. Mervyn?
Yeah. Couple of quick questions. The storm disposal system that's installed now, is that anywhere under the proposed patio area, or is it?
No, it is not. And if that would have been the case, I never would have undertaken
it's over
this.
here.
Yeah, it does, that's what I'm trying to get at.
No, it's in this area over here, but it's closer to the playground area?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
okay.
think some
That's
the
the picture.
photographs will
That's all I wanna know.
help you orient.
Okay. And obviously, at present, there's no way of the runoff from the proposed additional impervious to enter this storm system?
They're in separate areas of the yard, if that answers your question.
Is there any yard drains?
Yard drains? No.
Yeah, no. We're gonna have to start reviewing these things. All right, and you said you had no problems recently with the runoff?
I've had no problems recently or since the work was done.
It all went on the neighbor's property?
I'm sorry?
Okay.
I can only speak to my property, and I haven't had any complaints.
All right.
I think you're gonna have to verify that the pitch is more toward this way than this way, so you don't get runoff onto the neighbor.
Yeah.
That's okay, you can do this condition.
But can we put that into the motion somehow? Just for my own clarity here, it looks like you pulled out the old semicircular plastic storm drains that you show in the one photograph, and you install it looks like concrete or plastic tanks into the circular, into the ground. Okay.
Just the regular, just precast concrete.
And just out of curiosity, those tanks, did they have crushed stone around them?
Yes.
They did, okay, so that's the difference.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were built properly.
Yeah,
All right,
you can see they got the,
all right, okay, I have no further
fabric
questions.
also. I think it's just too much going to them.
Good, Mr. Mervyn?
I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Kaplan?
Can you confirm the elevation of the 2 patios?
Unless it was put in the drawing by my contractors, I'm unable to do that.
How high was the patio?
Oh,
I could, you know, from the sidewalk, at the front of the property to the very back end of the backyard. I'm trying to remember, it might be a difference of a couple feet. It's a very gradual slope. But in terms of the actual elevations, I can't tell you. I think, there is an estimate as to, the height of the boulder wall.
Yeah, what's that in relation to the patio?
The patio would be basically at the top of the boulder wall.
Okay.
So the boulder wall is supporting the patio, and I believe the boulders are estimated at 2 to 3 feet. So obviously the bigger ones would be out towards the area furthest from the house.
Okay.
To account for the gradual slope.
Okay. And your survey shows a fence at the rear of the property. How tall is that fence? Roughly.
I'm going to estimate it 6 feet tall.
Yeah, which rear? No, this is rear.
And side, so that's a 6-foot fence all the way around the perimeter of the back?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Gentlemen?
I could certainly think that of Mr. Berman's regarding the pitch of the patio. That it would be some way to direct the water to come towards the storm chambers. To avoid creating a problem. To avoid creating a problem for your next door neighbor on the north side. You don't want the water running off this way. And maybe it is addressed already, but that would be my only concern though.
Yeah, to answer you, I can only answer with assumptions, and you probably don't want to, hear that, but I'm just assuming that, the contractor would design these patio surfaces in standard fashion to sort of disperse the water in all directions and into the surrounding flower bed.
but that's, to Mr. Deere's point, we wouldn't want to see the upper patio basically channeling down the stairs and then potentially going off the property. If it's pitched slightly the other way, it's going
Right.
to stay on the property, and there would be no impact based on this addition.
It's certainly something I would
Yeah.
Yeah,
raise
and
my
we're not talking about a big pitch.
Right.
2% is more than enough.
He's got grass plantings. You're supposed to put crushed stone.
Right.
So that we redirect all that water to the chambers.
Yeah.
Mr. Sedaris, I've instructed the attorney to make that part of the approval.
Mr. Merman has another idea.
Okay.
I'm looking at your landscape plan here, and from the edge of the pavers, it equals the little bunny fountain grass, whatever the heck that is. If the area between the edge of the pavers and the back of your boulders had a minimum of a 1 foot wide crushed stone layer, which it probably should, and we could direct that runoff into that crushed stone vertical layer to dispose of the water into the ground, and that way the patio.
You can mulch the top, isn't it?
You can mulch, yeah,
It doesn't have to
yeah.
be exposed stone. It's just putting some
Yeah,
drainage in there.
but below that would be a crushed stone vertical layer. The water would come, go through your grass where you mulch into the crushed stone vertical layer behind the stone, and it would be in the ground.
Right. It's my understanding from my contractor's proposal that there is crushed stone beneath these surfaces.
Yeah, contractors have short memories.
And they're talking probably for the foundation. We're talking for a different purpose, so just to make sure that it's in the resolution.
Look,
I mean, we're gonna leave it, if it were to be approved, that there are gonna be conditions, and then your
Right.
contractor will have to.
Be subject to inspections as he goes forward.
Brian, you're good?
Yeah, I think I understand.
Mr. Gibbons?
My concerns are still on, the runoff, and I guess Mr. Merman's idea of having that water be able to escape? Because as I'm seeing this water, if it's coming off the patio and running into a 3-foot or 2-foot rock, is it gonna be able to get past that water towards the chambers? So I guess if, you know, to Mr. Berman's point, if there's something in there to get that water down into the ground, because I'm sure there's gonna be gaps in between this wall, but will that water be able to escape the patio towards the drainage pits? I'm not sure if you can even answer the question, but I'm just, and if anyone has experience with that, if that water will be able to get past those stones and get to the drainage pits, or will it just sit on the patio?
No, the patio has to be, they're gonna construct it to drain, so it's gonna have probably at least a 2% slope on it.
Right, but will it still get past, because you're gonna have a patio that's here and a wall that's gonna be 2 or 3 feet higher.
Yeah, I think if you looked at an elevation, you're gonna have the upper patio and then the lower patio.
Right.
And if this is sort of pitched this way, it's gonna channel down, most of the runoff's gonna channel through those steps. And I'm assuming that the lower patio is near grade level, right? So a lot of the runoff's gonna go that way, and then the rest is gonna be captured
In the beds and
in the bed, yeah.
Okay, so as long as that water is not gonna essentially puddle.
And if you really want to have a little, even more assurance, you can also, you know, ask Mr. Gilmartin if he would consider putting additional plantings along the property line. That always stops water also.
Correct.
So, but he's got a fence there, but I don't know if that's absolutely necessary, but it might be something, again, as a condition, based on as-built conditions, whether, you know, it looks like it's necessary.
Mr. Gilmartin, what do you think about that?
I wouldn't have any objections to additional plantings along that, are you talking about the north side yard or the?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
And to me, that would be based on as-built conditions, and then they can evaluate to see if it's...
Mr. Caningo, Councilman.
I have no questions right now.
Mr. Craig?
Looks good.
Ms. Grasso?
No questions.
Anybody? At this point, I believe it's time to open, for a motion open to the public. So,
Second.
Mr. Castle and the mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? At this point, I'm going to open the meeting to the public. You can ask your questions or make your statements based on a testimony that you've heard. Does anybody wish to speak? Either one. Just come on up, state your name, address.
Name is Joanna Schloman, 356 Valley Road.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Schloman, S-C-H-L-O-M-A-N-N.
And what was the address again, ma'am?
356 Valley.
Okay.
I live behind the Gilmartins and below the Gilmartins. What wasn't mentioned is behind the 6-foot fence is a hill. I have pictures here that show you what happens when it rains in my backyard.
Okay. Miss
Without his patio.
Ms. Schloman, first of all,
I
let
have
me...
nothing against him beautifying his backyard. What I worry about is me living in a lake. Would you like to see the pictures?
Just wait one second, let the...
Before we get to that, let me just swear you in, since you're providing testimony, so if you can raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony before this board shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, now you indicated you have a series of pictures. Are these all different pictures, or are they multiples of the same?
The different pictures of different parts of my
Okay.
backyard.
And who took those pictures?
Actually, my friend did because I don't own an iPhone.
Oh, well, all
I
right,
haven't
so
gotten to the
I
real
just need,
project,
I just need to authenticate these pictures.
Excuse me?
I just need to authenticate the pictures. So your friend took these pictures, and when were they taken?
They were taken the other day.
What's the other
But this
day?
happens every time it rains.
But you have to give me a date.
Monday, the rainy day.
Okay, it was taken on Monday.
Yeah.
That was,
For the whole month of March, it looked the same way.
all right, but Monday was the torrential rain day, if I remember
All right, so I should have taken it.
I'm just
Before I
asking,
do that,
all right, I understand, I'm just
Yeah.
trying, and these were taken on Monday, and they accurately depict the condition
Yeah.
of what occurred on the property.
I have nothing against
All right,
my
I
backyard.
just want you to
I'm
show
worried about
them
my
to
backyard.
Mr. Gilmore, and then we'll hand them to the board, and we'll mark all the photographs as 01. And when I get them, I'll figure out what the
I
length.
also don't understand what you're talking about, a raised patio, lower patio. I mean, I'm the only one sitting here without a diagram.
All right, so why
I
don't
don't
we,
know what you're
why
talking
don't, why don't we start out by you handing the pictures over to our engineer so he can look at them, and we'll pass them around. Mm-hmm.
He's a planner.
I mean, our
Zoning
planner, I
officer.
apologize.
Zoning officer.
Our zoning officer.
So we're gonna have to get positive input into these.
This is his fence right there.
You can't tell.
Hmm?
There's not enough capacity there. You can't tell.
This is the west side of my house.
Do you want engineering calculations?
No, I did it myself. No, I don't. What about proof that proof?
This is my house.
Point is,
It was actually up to that.
the additional one,
Go out.
how are we going
It
to,
was still there when I was
Handle
born.
it.
Next one in time. Now it's.
How are you gonna get into the ground?
Happens every time we rent.
okay.
I'm gonna take it. Thank you.
Here, take this one too.
Cute.
Did you add that in?
Yeah, you pass them around.
This was Monday after it stopped there.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask any questions?
Let's finish with the pictures.
I've
first.
never been to one of these before.
No, it's okay.
You have to give me instructions. 50 years I've never been to one of these. Actually, very interesting.
Well, welcome. Welcome aboard.
Mr. Gilmartin, you had said that it pitches front to back. How does it north to south, what's your property run?
I'm sorry.
But how does the property run from
Topography.
topography from north to south? You said from west to east, it's going one way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From north to south, if you look in the drawing where it says play yard,
Mhm.
that's also the lower part, but I would say it's flatter, if that makes sense.
Okay.
There's a little bit more of a pitch, I think, on the north end of the back, so the play yard would be in the south. But it does fairly consistently gradually slope from north to south. Sloping to the west.
Just a quick question. These pictures, do these depict the rear of your yard facing his property?
There's one picture where the shed is.
Where the
You can
shed
see
is.
You can see his fence, and you see that how the property goes down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
It's always been wet. We bought it knowing it would have been down, but do I want more? No.
Yeah, River Edge is a wet, very wet town to begin with. But my whole yard was underwater.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I don't end up with more.
Is this your shed?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is
And
on
the-
your site?
The white fence is his fence. Sorry, Mr. Gilmore.
Okay.
No problem.
Gilmore's fence. And that's the property that goes up.
Okay.
It's not, if our property was
Yep.
level back to back, it wouldn't be bad, but it's not.
That's right.
All right, while we're passing those around, I know you wanted to ask Mr. Gilmartin some questions. Just
Well, first of all,
just be mindful, go one question at a time, so Mr. Gilmartin has an opportunity to respond.
no, first of all, I want to know, if you only allow 35%, why are we getting 45% of the property? This is a huge house, a little piece of property. And now we're covering all the properties, which will
Right,
be
so,
detrimental.
so to answer your question, the borough has specific ordinances on building. The reason they come before us is for relief on that. They present their application, they present their proof, why it won't be detrimental to the neighbors of the town. And then this board decides, based on the applicant's testimony and the testimony of those from the neighbors that come up to question the applicant, we make our decision based on that.
Okay.
And that's called a variance.
Thank you.
Okay?
All right, now, how close will this be to the fence?
I'd have to consult with the drawings, and I gave my last copy away, but it's my understanding that we're within,
Let's get him a set of drawings.
Oh, thank you. I know, Mr. Sloman.
Larry, you want a set? I have. Okay.
I check it.
We're gonna need those, just pass them back.
It's my understanding that if we were proposing something that was too close to the property line, that it would have been rejected by the town for that reason. So I can't tell you what the exact number is right now, that we were supposed to stay behind, but it's my understanding that we complied with that.
Yes, the minimum setback is 5 feet for patio from rear and side yard property lines, and they're well beyond that.
And what about all those, whatever you're talking about, boulders or,
That's, wall fence 6 to 12 inches off the property line, well beyond that.
What do you want to do with this?
what did you say?
6 to 12 inches minimum for setback from the property line, fences and walls. We're well beyond that.
All right. I was gonna ask about the drainage system, but you also got that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any questions on that?
No, because I don't understand anything about it.
Okay.
What am I gonna ask you? That's what you guys are there for, hopefully. And the retaining wall, you said you're gonna put up or not?
Well, what I was referring to as the retaining wall is essentially the system of the boulders.
Boulders or retaining wall?
Well, maybe my contractor would phrase it differently. In my mind, as a layperson, I would think maybe the boulders and perhaps the stone, the gravel or crushed stone behind it or beneath it.
This gets changed. And I get money to put out.
How high?
I'm gonna settle that.
Gee, Scott.
I think the intention of the board is to make sure that the drainage system can accommodate.
Excuse me?
Guys,
Mr.
Merman.
From what I'm hearing from the board and the recommendations is to assure that the drainage system accommodates the paver patios. Right now, there's a pre-existing condition. Water runs downhill. I think we all experienced that on Monday, and the board is aware of it, and it would be the board's duty in this instance to assure that any runoff is adequately addressed. And that's, I think, what you heard were the questions.
Were you just saying that the water ran down there because it was a bad rainstorm?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying is that water runs downhill, so it's going to occur and it's going to pond
yeah.
somewhere. But the bad rainstorm certainly adds to it, and I'm aware from what your testimony is that this is a condition that exists no matter what type of rainstorm you have.
Yeah, which I don't want any worse. And neither would you. So what you're saying is what you're going to do, regardless of what you're going to do, is to prevent it being worse.
The board has the right to condition the variance in order to mitigate any adverse conditions. In this instance, to make sure that there is adequate retention of water or direction of water so it doesn't impact surrounding properties.
Now, where was this 35% versus the 45%? This way?
That goes outside of my expertise. Those numbers, 35 and 45.
That
is-
doesn't help.
Well,
I know.
No, I think the question she's asking is, the additional patio that you're putting onto the property, Is it going to be going toward her property, away from her property, straight back from your property? How is it gonna impact any kind of impervious coverage toward her property? That's what she's asking.
Well,
So if you look on your plan, you should be able to tell her that
I think that,
and point it
you
out
can
to
tell
her.
me, Mr. Sloman, does your property go as far as the corner of my backyard here, or I know your shed's in this area? but-
Looking from my backyard, it goes, the shed is on the left side,
Right,
on your right side. It goes beyond that, my next door neighbor, north.
I guess my question is your next door neighbor north of you also behind me, or is he behind my next door neighbor?
South, it's just me.
Right,
North, it's a little bit of my next door neighbor.
okay, I was just trying to understand if you were 100% behind me,
It's
or
kind of staggered.
it's a little staggered, okay. I mean, all I can say is in what direction is it going? It's certainly going towards Mr. Sloman's property, but it's also going towards the, the property of my neighbors on both sides of me. It's in my backyard, I'd say it's more or less towards the right side of the backyard. Mr. Sloman, your house is probably
That's where
more on the
water,
left,
yeah.
on the left side where the playground is?
Where the swing,
The swing set?
That's where it's gonna be?
No, the swing set is here. And quite frankly, it probably is gonna be replaced with grass because the kids are growing and it doesn't get used as much anymore.
Mr. Gilmartin, I would just say maybe also, when you do that,
Yep.
your contractor can actually regrade it, and maybe fill it in, so it doesn't pitch towards the fence. That'll address that.
We have,
Do you have any more questions? Thank you so much. Anybody else from the audience wish to speak? I've seen nobody raising their hands. A motion to close to the public?
Okay, sorry.
So moved.
Second Mayor, Mr. Caslin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Okay, thank you again. I'm gonna give the board one more round with questions to the applicant. Mr. Brasso?
This is more of a question to the attorney. Does such a provision exist if the application were to be approved and the neighbor did have a water issue? Could some provision be in the application that the property owner would be required to make some type of change to address that? Does such a thing exist?
It's difficult to assess because there's a water condition that presently exists. I think the way to manage that is through any conditions that could be imposed. You had suggestions from Mr. Merman, and I just heard the mayor suggest the regrade to avoid pitch towards the fence. That would retain the water. And your question is well-founded, but, what is the condition today and how do we determine that it's exacerbated? So it's one of,
I see your point.
it's one of enforcement.
And Mr. Gilmartin probably wants to cover his ears, but we can have another condition, if that is the issue, he may have to put in a seepage pit. Simple as that, and.
Right, that's
directly.
right.
So, but that would
How
be
do you
last
quantify
resort.
that? How do you
Sorry?
quantify that?
And adding.
You'll be able to,
Go
it'll
ahead.
be obvious
Oh.
if there's an impact.
Oh.
The amount of water flowing. I don't see any water
We have
coming
to-
through the
we-
fence.
We have to measure it now, don't we?
Well, all right, so here is the response that the neighbor could take should the applicant's work impact her property with more water. She could simply call the borough building department, have the borough engineer come down. If he or the zoning officer determines that water is coming from one property to another, they can enforce that and make them fix it. And I know this for a reason, because my neighbor installed a new drain pipe and started leaking on my property, and our borough engineer went over there and told me he had to retask it.
I understand all that. My question is, how do you quantify the difference between the amount of rainfall now and what will gather in this person's yard subsequent to the work?
How are you gonna show that there's a difference?
Difference is a function of the area.
I don't understand that. What does that mean?
You got a bigger impervious area, you're gonna get a larger runoff.
How are you gonna
It's being
quantify that?
intercepted.
Oh, no, well, yes, you can intercept it, but you
Being
have a
intercepted.
larger impervious surface, it's going to intercept the runoff. Now, the question is, what do you do with the runoff, I believe is what you're getting at.
No, it's not so much that. What I'm asking is, before we even get to all of those questions, the question is, if right now a certain amount of water comes into the yard, and after this work, a different amount of water comes into the yard, how are we gonna be able to say that there's more or even less?
Right, I guess the question is, if there's already an existing condition with runoff which the pictures demonstrate.
It's gonna be obvious once they do an as-built and you have the elevations. And when it rains, somebody's gonna be out there and look at the as-built condition, and they're gonna make sure it's pitching the way it's supposed to pitch. And my expectation would be, is that 90% of it will go into this trench area. You may get some sheet flow off that lower area. If he raises that, it's not going anywhere, it's gonna stay in his yard. So that's basically what we're trying to do, is encapsulate it.
So we're gonna say, well, he did everything that he asked for, therefore there's no way that there can be more water in the other
Correct,
person's yard.
because you can't quantify now what's coming from him now, or what's coming from, just from the sky. You have an embankment,
But
you have a shed that has a
what
roof.
if the resident comes back to us and says, ever since this, it's twice as much water?
But once this is approved, the resident's only recourse would be to go to the building department,
Mhm.
and it's out of our hands.
But there
So,
becomes,
and the engineer or our zoning officer would have to inspect the property, maybe during a rainfall, and see if there is additional runoff. And if he detected that, then he would instruct the applicant that he'd have to fix it. And even if they didn't do this work, and nothing was done, and the neighbor complained, and the engineer or our zoning officer went to the property and saw that water was running off of his property onto her property, they would instruct him to fix it, and he'd have a certain amount of time to fix it.
I didn't know that, and that's a different.
well, but that depends. If it's natural flow, no. I live on a hill, and my neighbor runs
No,
onto
I'm-
me, and I run onto that.
I'm saying if
It's not gonna make it.
yeah, but if there's an additional problem because of the work that's being done,
Yes, but you're gonna have and I've had this happen, where we've had issues, not here, in other town, but where the contractor actually put a 2-foot berm up. So there was no way water was going over, but the people behind still insisted that the water was coming over the berm. You can see if water's going over a 2-foot berm. You know, and then you can only do what you can do, and you say, physically, it doesn't seem very possible, and he did everything, you know, to mitigate, and there's nothing, you know, that should be contributing to more off-site runoff.
If I could add a comment, I could speak to my contractor about, since we were talking about pitch, possibly pitching the surface of those pavers to have the water run to the north, effectively away from Mrs. Sloman's yard. Perhaps it might even improve her current condition as opposed to.
Well, you wouldn't want it running north, because it would create a problem to your neighbor. You would want it to pitch to the changes you have on the property.
I think in general, from what we've heard in terms of what proposed conditions there are, and it also, I can answer Councilman Shanigo's question, is that the idea of a condition is that you have something that is clear and enforceable. And what you are attempting to do here is to mitigate any adverse impact of this patio for any water drainage off the site. And I think from what I've heard from Mr. Merman and the mayor, you have reasonable conditions that can be enforced in terms of the pitch, in terms of the stone behind, which will absorb and probably direct the water to the seepage pits, and the regrading. So that regrading will in all likelihood, is what we just heard about the berm, if there is more water, it's going to stay on Mr. Gilmartin's property rather than go anywhere else.
and again, if it doesn't, it becomes an enforcement issue, and our professionals take care of that. Or do their best.
We shall.
Any other questions from members of the board? Mr. Skirvitz, hearing what we had, what was discussed, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I do not.
Okay, at this point,
Ready for a motion?
I am.
I'm gonna throw a motion out for discussion by the board. Okay? The motion will be that, the board approve the application that's been submitted for the, rear patio, and that the applicant and/or his contractor, when submitting for a building permit, include a plan that depicts certain drainage provisions, which include the patio slope. It also includes a vertical crushed stone layer behind, let's put it this way, between the boulders and the patio pavers, and that the local rear, the rear yard be regraded such to reduce, if not eliminate, but it's probably going to be reduce, the surface runoff to the neighbor's property at 356 Valley it was? Okay. And that this plan and the building permit be held until, or not issued until the plan is reviewed and approved by the borough engineer's office. That the borough engineer inspect the said construction and submit an approval from his office prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy for this building permit. Now, if I went too fast, I can redo it.
Would be a certificate of approval, but I'm up
Okay,
to that.
all right, okay.
Did you include maybe we should just include the condition that they should regrade the area?
I did,
Right.
I said the rear yard area should be regraded.
Additional escrow for the borough engineer to go inspect that?
Yeah, well,
That'll be covered.
to reduce the runoff.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm open to discussion.
But we would need a second.
Okay.
Second.
Councilman Canino. I've been practicing that all
Canigo.
week.
All right, I have to ask, what's the correct pronunciation?
Canigo.
Canigo.
Kinigo.
Go. Nice and simple.
That we'll remember.
Canigo.
That's how he told me, and I remember now.
Can
Can you just get rid of the H and what?
Just change it with a K, come on, the A's would be, yes, it would have been much easier going on.
more phonetic.
So Darius was giving me a little tough time last week too, but I've got that down pat.
All right, so you have a motion and a second on the table, Mr. Chairman.
Any more discussion on the motion?
Maybe that Mr. Costa should maybe do a pre-construction inspection, just to make sure there are no other unseen issues right now that can be addressed. Particularly, I'm thinking about maybe more on the north side, because we don't want to fix things on the south side and all of a sudden create or not identify pre-existing issues elsewhere.
I've got one item. I believe the applicant agreed to some planting installations.
Yes.
That was on the north side?
Yes.
Was that what we had?
I
In
think
front of
it's
the
going to
fence?
be wherever it's determined to be needed.
All right.
That's what's going to happen.
All right.
So,
You may have to put,
if the borough engineer is
Yeah,
going
I'll
to
provide you
review
something
that,
over here, over here.
That would help us absorb it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would,
Well,
We
we
need ground cover to absorb the,
you would put a stone trench, and then you put,
okay. You want to cut a
All
vertical cover?
All right.
yeah.
I'd like to call a vote. Roll call vote, please.
Chair Arakelian,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes, I'll always vote for my motion.
Mr. Grasso,
Yes.
Mr. Canigo,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
Mr. Sederis?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Mayor Mignon?
Yes.
And Mr. Cribb?
Yes.
Okay, the application is approved. You'll have a resolution for your May 2nd
And just for
meeting.
Mr. Skirbis, can you just please delineate or define what the actual coverages are with the calculation, so we actually know in the resolution
Yeah.
what the real, the percentage is one thing, but I want to see the actual numbers.
It's tough when the members come up with their own slide rules. Mr. Gamartin, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's consideration and your time. Thank you.
Also, the survey should be resubmitted, not showing the proposal. This is,
Or just have them put proposed.
no, he can't. No, somebody signed this
Oh,
drawing. You
that's
can't
right.
modify someone's drawing. He shouldn't have done it in the first place.
All right, so the original drawing.
You have
Original survey.
The original sealed survey.
Yes, that's fine.
What he's referring to. All right.
Okay. Members of the audience, we appreciate you coming up. Anybody have anything else to say while you're here? Okay, well, it's nice to see people out there once in a while.
Thank you.
Just a little, housekeeping. We're gonna carry New York Market to the next meeting,
Which is May 2nd.
May 2nd. Evidently, we have a report from Mr. Skirbis, real quick, on your last pass-through there. It sounds like you're cleaning it up.
Howard's done, a lot of the things are removed. I understand a contractor was there for 10, sorry. The closing bins are still there. We showed about Thursday. Marty and I are looking into that, looking it out, and there's no progress.
Okay. That makes me feel a little better.
But that's just to get them to pre-existing condition, not what we're going to impose on them in terms of conditions.
Coming up, we're gonna have,
Mr. Mervin has a comment.
No, I have a housekeeping item when you get that.
so coming up, we're gonna have RSM Trading, which is the new Indian cuisine restaurant. It looks like they're gonna be coming in for site plan approval for, I believe, a patio. They also probably gonna have to apply for a food license, because they never did. So we'll have to
They're expanding
You'll
downstairs
contact
also.
Mr. Pardon?
They're expanding downstairs.
So,
Well, they weren't going to expand, they want to reallocate.
so you'll contact Mr. Suresti?
Yes.
They want to keep the
Yes,
same
I've
number of
already
seats.
spoken with
just
Mr.
what-
Suresti.
Okay.
That was my
We
understanding.
have a prior resolution on that site, when Beamers was there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's not forget that. There's a restriction on that.
I have not seen that resolution.
Well, we approved something else there after the
Did we?
Yes, remember there was going to be like some kind of market thing?
No, there was gonna be,
Yeah, there was going to be a marketplace.
cooking, a guy was gonna cook wholesale.
Yes, he's
That's
going to
what
bring
I'm
food
re-
in there, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
All right, also, coming up, and I like to give everybody a little heads up. We have I believe, the New Jersey Historic Association is going to be coming in for a full site plan approval on a new museum down on the corner where the junkyard used to be. And I think in the near future, I think we're going to see some sort of presentation where Bergen Batting is, and also quite possibly where the Sunoco gas station to the north is. So those seem to be the things that are on our docket. Again, with a booming economy, I could see a lot more people trying to expand on their homes. So I would imagine the zoning part of this board will continue to be as busy as we've been. I appreciate everybody coming up. It's great seeing everybody's face. I know you have a softball game to get to. I'll entertain a motion to, I'm sorry, Mr. Merman?
Yeah, housekeeping item. When our planner returns, or we can get word to him, 65 Route 4 West, our famous sign. Two items. One, he was supposed to review the lighting at night, the intensity, and two, that, monument sign is still up, that was supposed to
That's
come
the
down.
attorney?
That's correct.
Okay.
That monument sign's gotta come down.
I'll give Mr. Costa a call and have him.
No, it's,
Tom.
Tom.
I don't think the sign has been installed, it still has the banner there.
I think the banner's.
I
Banner's
thought
still
the
there.
banner was gone.
No, the
banner's
banner's
still there.
Banner's
Still
still
there.
there. Yes, yeah, I think you're correct. I drive by there.
And he also owes
Right.
us a report, an annual report.
Yes, we did not get an annual.
We did not get an annual report yet.
From the, regarding the variance, correct.
No, regarding last year's,
Last
Right,
year's,
right, regarding any variance relief
Right.
as a zoning board.
yes,
yes.
or the planning board. It's the annual report.
That's it.
Okay, we'll
Go,
work
go
on
play
that.
softball.
Motion to adjourn?
Hit 'em straight.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Good luck tonight, Mr. Shingle. I don't get hit in the face or anything. My son broke his nose.